Hi, I'm Robert W. Gale. I'm coming to you from Toronto in Canada. This video is to give you a rundown of AoIR.Social, the Association of Internet Researchers' very own social media system. In this video, I'll talk about signing up, how to get started, and posting basics. Now, just a quick note to say, I'm doing this work on a laptop. For those of you using a phone, there are apps to engage with Mastodon, but I'm not going to cover their use here. The steps for using apps actually are pretty similar though. I use Tusky for Android. I recommend that app if you want to use an Android app. For iPhone users, I hear good things about Toot and Metatext apps. By way of background on AoIR.Social, it started earlier this year in reaction to the purchase of Twitter by Elon Musk. Several of us gathered at AIR in 2022 to plan this out, and after several meetings with the executive committee, AoIR.Social was born. So as for benefits of AoIR.Social, AoIR.Social membership is included in your AIR membership fees. Now, obviously, one major benefit of being on AoIR.Social is the ability to connect with fellow AIR scholars, but because AoIR.Social is also a member of the Fediverse, which is a large network of thousands of other social media servers, we can connect to people all over the world. I myself have been participating in the Fediverse since 2017, and I've been able to follow journalists, artists, musicians, and of course, internet studies scholars from all over the world. Another benefit of AoIR.Social is that we're quite well federated now, which means that even if you don't join our server, if you're on another Fediverse service, you can still follow your favorite AIR scholars. In addition, no matter where folks are on the Fediverse, we should all be able to follow the hashtag AIR 2023 during the upcoming conference. So let's talk about joining AoIR.Social. Typically, you can join by using an invite code. We'll send this out on occasion via email to AIR members. The first thing you'll see when you click through that invite code is ground rules. These are shorthand statements about our code of conduct. I'll talk more about codes of conduct in a little bit. Now, there may be an alternative way you sign up. We may also open AoIR.Social up for applications, and if we do that, you'll see this screen, which asks you why you want to join. If you see that screen, if this is the route you're going, please include your AIR member number in the field in the answer to the question of why you want to join. So let's talk about the signing up process. It's pretty straightforward. You choose a username, you set a password, and so on. And we ask that you please use whatever email you regularly use for AIR correspondence. Now, you do have to accept the privacy policy. Please do check it out. Surveillance capitalism isn't really a thing on the Fediverse, so we're not gathering your personal data, but we do require information for the site to function. Now, after you look at the privacy policy, you'll see a screen with suggestions for folks to follow. Compared to corporate social media, these suggestions tend to be somewhat sparse. Mastodon isn't going to ask you to declare a bunch of interests and then make algorithmic suggestions based on that. Instead, you're going to want to search for topics and follow interesting people via topics and other searches, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But in the meantime, feel free to follow folks on this list. And may I humbly suggest following Admin1 or Instance Coffee, the admin account. That's a good account to follow to get updates and information about the server. All right, let's get set up. You're in the system now. In the center, you'll see a single column, and depending on how many people you might have selected following initially, it may or may not have many posts. We'll get to that in a bit. You'll also notice you have the Mastodon equivalent of a new egg, the Mastodon logo. You're going to want to change that, I imagine. So let's go into preferences and make some changes. On this first page in preferences, you'll see a lot of options, and I encourage exploration here. For now, I'm only going to talk about a few. If you have questions about others, please reach out to me. So let's go to the profile. So, of course, you'll want to put cool pictures and write some about me text here. Now, you may be thinking, should I use my real-world identity or use a pseudonym? Note that the AIR Social Code of Conduct does not prohibit your using a pseudonym. So if you want to go by an alternative identity from your professional identity, feel free. Of course, you can also use your professional name and profile. That's what I do. It's a pretty common practice on air.social. Just keep in mind it's not a requirement. Now, pro tip, I recommend including pronouns in your About Me section. The Fediverse was and has been developed by many queer and trans folks who appreciate that solidarity. Other options you have here. One is require follower requests. Mastodon gives you the ability to vet potential followers. If you want some privacy and the ability to check people out before allowing them to follow you, check this box. Conversely, a more public option is suggest this account to others. That's a good choice if you want new AoIR.Social members to find you more easily. There are more options on this page. Scroll down and you can see them, but I'm going to move on for now. Now be sure to save your changes. Now let's talk about posting. You've got a profile picture, you've got a header picture. You'll notice that I put a dog picture here. I know that AIR runs on a cat-based economy, but I am a dog person. So now it's time to post. In the upper left-hand corner, you see a box with the question of our age. What's on your mind? You can type in some obscure internet reference here and then post. But first, let's look at per post privacy settings. There's a public setting, and as its name implies, that's the most open form. It's going to be the most federated form. Unlisted takes the post out of the local timeline and removes it from searches. It's still visible to followers though. Followers only goes to just your followers, and mention people only is a direct message. For now, I'll select unlisted and post this message. I'm also selecting this so I keep these silly test posts out of the main AIR timeline. And there you are. Favoriting, boosting. So like Twitter, you can reply, favorite, boost, or bookmark posts. Reply is pretty straightforward. You write a response. Note that these can have their privacy settings changed too. It's a bit self-indulgent, but I responded my previous obscure internet reference with yet another obscure internet reference. Favoriting is a key sign of affection on the Fediverse. Favorite things you enjoy to let people know you care. Look, I've even favorited myself twice. Boosting is the equivalent to retweeting. This is a very powerful tool in the Fediverse because, again, there's no recommendation engine. The real way that you find people and make people visible is through boosting. Boosting is a signal to the network that this post is good. I will, of course, boost myself, and you can too. Now, my strong advice, if you see something you agree with or you really like on the Fediverse, boost it. Boosting is typically reciprocated. Finally, there's bookmarking. I don't use this one very often, but like the name implies, it's a way to mark a post for later. Content warnings. Let's talk about content warnings. Now, there's a simple description of them. They're like a subject line for your post. You can give people a spoiler alert for a movie or TV show. You might use it to warn folks about something traumatic, or you can use it for knock-knock jokes. Now let's say I want to do a spoiler alert for these internet culture references, just to give people a chance to skip over the post if they don't want to see it anymore. I can do that by clicking the CW and typing it into the new field. I'll talk a bit more about content warnings when I talk about the AoIR.Social code of conduct. For now, I will say that content warnings are used far, far less on the Fediverse than they used to be. I think it may have something to do with the influx of folks from Twitter. Now, if you're stressed about content warnings, please don't be. Just think of them as a courtesy. For example, I myself use content warnings for posts when I talk about US politics. I figure that other folks on the Fediverse may not be interested in this topic. There's a big world out there besides the US. So the content warning gives them a chance to skip right past my post. And conversely, for people interested in it, they know immediately what I'm posting about and they can jump in and join the conversation. Let's talk about images and other media. They can be attached to posts using that little paperclip. Now you might recall that when you signed up, you saw a rule saying, please include all text on images. It's really important. Here's why. The Fediverse is designed to be accessible, including for disabled people with visual disabilities. So one habit that might have been okay on Twitter, that's not acceptable here, is posting images with no alternate text. If you click on Edit, you can get this screen where you can type in alternative descriptive text. I've added some here to Keyboard Cat. Now, But what if you post an image without alt text? You might get a DM from me at admin1 reminding you to do so. It's important that we do. But if you do forget, well, there's something cool we can do to fix that problem. You can edit your post. Yes, you can go back and edit a post. I do it all the time to fix typos. You can go back and edit a post with an image and add alt text. Or you can go back and add something we haven't yet talked about. You could add hashtags. Click on the little dots to the lower right and you'll see options to edit. I'll go back in this post and add a hashtag internet culture to this post. Hashtags are important on the Fediverse. They're a really good way to find people based on interests. You can even follow hashtags. Let's use the search feature and we'll find a hashtag. I'll search for internet culture and there it is, including my own post. There's a little icon in the upper right. If you want to follow that hashtag, click on it and it changes to indicate you're following it. Now, if we look through posts under this hashtag, we might see other accounts we want to follow which share that interest. For example, right below mine is one from Flipboard. You may want to follow Flipboard. Of course, you can also use the search to find people to follow too. However, I should say that search for finding specific accounts is tricky on the Fediverse. There's a long story here, there's some technical details, and there's also details about privacy and safety. So suffice it to say, following people is a little bit trickier. For me, when I want to get into a topic, I follow hashtags, and then I start following people who are posting that hashtag. And if I want to follow someone I know, I go ask them, what's your handle? And then I follow that. That's a lot easier than searching. Still, you can use search to find people. If we search for my last name, there I am, the third one down. You'll also see a very, very old account of mine that I made back in 2017 when I didn't quite know what I was doing on the Fediverse. Now, if you click on my name, it brings you to my profile. And now the test account I'm using today is following me. Let's talk about codes of conduct. We talked about quite a few features of Mastodon, but what about governing ourselves? Well, like many Mastodon instances, we also have a code of conduct. You can find it at air.social/about. The current draft, as of this recording, is 0.5. Now, I strongly recommend you review the code of conduct for two reasons. The first reason has to do with the values we share at air.social. Like many other Mastodon instances, we're not a free speech absolutist social media system. We moderate against hate speech, harassment, and trolling. If you're being harassed, please report it, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. You'll also see encouraged uses of air.social. Brag about your publications, let us know about conference papers, share art, share pet pictures, talk about the issues of the day. Basically, do social media stuff. You also see a note about alt text on images. Again, it's really important for accessibility. That's why we put it in the code of conduct. Skipping down to the bottom of the page, you also see a discussion about research ethics. It's another important topic. As a leading organization developing internet research ethics, we expect our members to adhere to the highest ethical standards in internet research. But I skipped something in this little preview. In the middle of the COC, you'll see a discussion of content warnings. Now, as you can see, we're framing it in terms of consent. If you use a content warning on a post that includes, for example, the discussion of politics, you basically let others consent to see your post or not. We're thinking of this as a courtesy to the rest of the Fediverse, and content warnings have a long history on the Fediverse. It's a very complicated history. And that brings me to the second reason I want you to look at the code of conduct. It's just a draft. I mentioned earlier that content warnings in particular are a difficult topic on the Fediverse. When we drafted this code of conduct, we were basing it on similar statements from other academic-focused instances. However, I've learned kind of through the grapevine that many AIR members are confused about when to use content warnings on the Fediverse. So it could be that we get together and have a conversation and revise this section. This is where the magic happens on the Fediverse. Air.social is our social media. It's not owned by anyone else. We set the rules. So perhaps at the next conference, we can talk about this code of conduct and modify it. Maybe we change our content warning section together. Now, whether or not we change the COC, just keep in mind that air.social is ours to run. We make the rules together. How cool is that? However, while we make our own rules on our own server, we can't control the rest of the Fediverse. Other servers make their own rules. That said, we do have some power. We can mute, block, and report. Here I've gone to a post from my main account at RWG to illustrate what we can do. Let's say hypothetically that RWG says something that violates the code of conduct or is otherwise trollish. Click on those 3 little dots and you can see some options here. Mute, block, and report. Mute allows you to silence the person either indefinitely or for a period of time. For example, if RWG is posting so much that you're overwhelmed, go ahead and mute it. Really, honestly, I wouldn't mind. Go ahead and mute me if I'm being annoying. Now, blocking is much more severe. It severs the connection. That account can't follow you or see your posts. So this is a big tool. We know this from Twitter. It's also available in the Fediverse. Reporting brings the account to the attention of the moderators, people like myself and the rest of the moderation team. Reporting, when you click through that, will give you some options like including evidence of what problems you face, and the ability to write a note to the moderators. Just a quick note about the moderators. I love our moderation team. We have about a dozen. They're around the world, and we act quickly. Typically, we see spam from other servers, and we block it within minutes. It's been really, really effective. And while we're on the topic, I should let you know that air.social also preemptively blocks many servers, entire servers on the Fediverse. There's a long history here, but basically, if a server is known to house racists and trolls, we're already blocking it on air.social. That said, as the saying goes, if you see something, say something. For example, if you report a user is on a server and we take a look at the server and the moderators find that it's full of trolls, we may very well block that entire server, not just the one person. But at the very least, if you find yourself being harassed by anybody in the Fediverse, please do report it to us and we're going to act very quickly. Okay, so that's a pretty big tour of air.social. You might be wondering, should I join? Well, if you want to network with Air folks and talk all things Air 2023, then yes, please. But you might be wondering, what if I want to post vacation pictures or recipes or weird memes or pictures of cats or snarky comments about the state of the world? Yes, join us. You're also welcome to do that as well. Join us at air.social. Join us, my Air friends. And if you have any questions before or after joining, I'm at RWG at air.social. The admin account, which I'm currently running, is at admin1 at air.social. And you can email me at robertwgale@protonmail.com. I personally think the Fediverse is a really great opportunity for us to run our own social media. And I want you to join us. I want you to jump in on that project. So I'd love to help you out if you have any questions about it. Thanks and happy posting.